Assalamualaikum and hello. So now we've come to the last video, which means the last part of our chapter 3, which we are going to focus about dilution. For dilution of a solution, it means that you will reduce the concentration of the solution. However, the number of moles of solute in the solution does not change. So what you should understand that mole of solute before the dilution is equal to the moles of solute after the dilution. Dilution adalah pencairan in Malay. It means that you add more solvent. And your solvent, for example, usually will be water. So when you add more water into the solution, you do the dilution, which you reduce the concentration of a solution. For dilution, there are specific formula, which is MIVI equals to MFVF, where this formula is coming from formula of molarity. So you got formula of molarity, which is molarity of the solution equals to mole of solute divided by volume of solution. But in this case, we rearrange the formula to put the number of mole as the subject. So which means that mole of solute equals to molarity times with volume of solution. So that's why this formula comes from the molarity. However, when we do the dilution, there is two condition or two situation, which the situation before dilution and the situation after the dilution. So biasanya solution before dilution kita akan gunakan simbol initial I ataupun 1. And untuk the situation after the dilution, kita akan gunakan simbol F, final ataupun 2. So sometimes you will see another formula for dilution, M1V1 equals to M2V2 instead of like this. It's just the same. So M here is referring to the molarity of the solution, either initial or final. And V here is referring to volume of solution, either final or initial. And as I mentioned before, alert with the use of 1 equals to I or F equals to 2. So 1 or I is referring to before dilution, F or 2 after the dilution. So let's try one example to calculate the dilution of a solution. How many milliliters of a 5 molar stock solution of NaCl are needed to prepare 100 ml of a 0.4 molar solution? So in this case, you need to see the sentence used in the questions. So for example, I have the sentence to prepare. So which means to prepare is my product. So it means that after the dilution. So 100 ml and 0.4 molar is referring to after the dilution. And what I want to calculate is the milliliters, which means that it is the volume. So this is before the dilution. Either I use 1 or I use I. So this is my VI, the one that I want to calculate. And I have 5 molar of stock solution of NaCl. So automatically this is going to be my M1. And then I have V2 and I have M2. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put the value into the formula, where my formula is M1V1 equals to M2V2. And make sure you label the value given from the question. So I put my value except for V1, which I want to find out right now. And in this case, my volume here, saya letak sahaja dalam unit ml because at the end of my answer, I will get my V1 in ml. If you take a look here, my volume is 100 milliliter. So the unit is milliliter. But this is the formula for molarity. As I mentioned before, in the previous video about molarity, the volume for the solution must be in liter. But kenapa saya guna 100 dekat sini? Saya tak convert. So one tip that you have to know, when you want to calculate the dilution, you can use in ml or in liter, but make sure the V1 and V2 must be in the same unit. Awak tak boleh guna V1 dalam liter, V2 dalam ml. No, it cannot be like that. Or if you don't want to be confused, awak boleh gunakan dalam liter straight away. Sebab ini adalah formula molarity. So you can convert 100 milliliter into liter. And of course, the final answer you will get is in liter. So that's for example 11. So let's try another example, example 12, where I want to find out the volume of HNO3 is required. So right now my verb is required. It means that sebelum saya prepare the dilution. So maknanya ini adalah information untuk 1, initial. So this is the volume that I want to find out, V1, and then this is what I want to calculate, and then I have 15.8 molar. This is M1. So once I got the value, right now it's required to make 250 ml for V2 and this one for M2. So this information is given from the question. So you put the value M1, V1 that you want to find out, M2 and V2. And now how you want to do that? Put into the equation. So you have the formula M1 V1 equals to M2 V2. Masukkan semua nilai. Awak akan calculate V1 iaitu dalam kes ini 95 milliliter of 15.8 molar HNO3. So very simple. Let's try another example. So example 13, how to prepare 500 milliliter of a 2.75 molar solution of HCl from 8.90 molar solution of this acid. So maksudnya to prepare, this information yang saya tunjuk di sini adalah untuk final situation, which means after dilution. So kalau tadi example yang saya guna dalam term 1, 2. Now how about we try in I ataupun F. So ini adalah after dilution, so which means 500 ml adalah saya punya V final and 2.75 molar adalah M final. And then what I have here adalah M initial dan saya mahu V initial. So this is what I want to calculate, V initial. So what will happen, I take out all the values from the question. So these are all the value, and then I use the formula MIVI equals to MFVF. Dan saya masukkan semua nilai. And I got my VI, my X here, which the initial volume before the dilution. Calculate and you will get the value 154.5 milliliter. And then ingat, kalau dalam ni awak guna volume dalam ml, pastikan X yang awak dapat dalam unit yang sama, ml. I have the illustration here for you to understand more about dilution. So right now, saya ada 500 ml as my final volume of the dilution. But right now, I want to calculate the volume that I need to use to prepare 500 milliliter of the solution. So that's why the volume yang saya ada adalah 154.5 milliliter. You can try to answer question from Try This 4.0 part 4, where you have to calculate by using the formula dilution. And read the question carefully. I put the final answer here for you to enhance your understanding. So that's all for our video about dilution. And I do a bit summary about this chapter where there are a lot of formulae that you have to memorize. Of course, you need to memorize them. And I have advanced mole triangle where for this one, kalaulah dia bahagian bawah, maknanya dia bahagi. So, for number of mole, I want to calculate based on volume. It will be volume over molar volume. Kalau saya nak calculate based on mass, number of mole equals to mass over molar mass. And then kalau saya nak calculate number of mole based on molarity, saya darab molarity dengan volume. So ini adalah advanced mole triangle. And then contoh seterusnya saya ada in terms of Avogadro's constant. So untuk cari number of mole, saya boleh gunakan number of particles divided by Avogadro's constant. And also, kalau saya ada molarity, mole of solute equals to molarity times liter of solution. So, bila awak baca soalan betul-betul, awak kena keluarkan information dan make sure you use the correct formula. And for this illustration, hanya mudah untuk awak hafal. But if you can memorize in another technique, it's fine. Asalkan awak dapat final answer yang betul. And then, apart from that, kita ada juga formula untuk calculate percentage by mass dan juga dilution, seperti mana yang kita belajar dalam video kali ini. And also the density. So please, when you calculate something, kalau dia ada unit, pastikan final answer awak letak unit. So, that's all for chapter 3, mole concept. You are done. So, I hope you can be patient and trust in the progress for you to be successful. So, that's all from me. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next chapter.